Getting beat up by 9 guys at Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame.
Welcome to the Heel to the Face podcast.
And this right here,
with your hosts, Jared Wicks, Brandon Icebreaker Clements, and Paul Boy Green Esden.
It doesn't matter what your name is. And that's the bottom line. Cause Stone Cold Texas. Best there is, the best there was, or the best there ever will be.
Brett screwed Brett. Because it's what's best for business.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man. The champ is here. Oh yeah. New Day Rock. And if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for ya.
Tweet us using the handle @HeelToTheFace.
Woo! Let's get ready to suck it.
The bell is rung, so let's step in the ring with your hosts, Paul, Brandon, and Jared.
I might as well tag me up with my buddy from Syracuse.
1 week from the Royal Rumble, the Heel to the Face podcast is on the air. We are joined this week, as always, with Brandon, the Icebreaker Clements. You can find him on Twitter @Icebreaker21. Myself, Jared, just Jared Wicks. Most importantly, follow the program on Twitter @HeelToTheFace. That's where you'll get our links to the show, as well as our tweets of the week, Twitter question of the week, as we are live and we are coming to you in living color on iTunes, YouTube, all the regular platforms, Sports War Radio, Rat Pack Radio. We're excited that you could be on board with the show for yet another week. As I said, RAW25's coming up. Royal Rumble's a week away, so let's get to it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening
with a 20-minute time limit.
So without further ado, let's get right to the main event of the program. And while SmackDown this week and the U.S. title, they're two things. And, well, actually, no, they're one thing. Brandon's pick for U.S. champion. He was out in the semifinals. Mojo Rawley, see you later. Bobby Roode not just won the semifinals, but became the United States champion. A big surprise. Nobody saw it coming this past week on SmackDown because nobody thought that the match was going to even happen on SmackDown. Now, a quick thing. I don't know if you saw this on SmackDown this week, but I was following along. So the original thought, and I believe we saw the graphics. This isn't just coming out of nowhere. This isn't just a theory. The graphics showed us that the championship, the U.S. tournament final, if you will, was going to happen at the Royal Rumble. And then all of a sudden, not just before these matches were over, but even during the matches, the talk was that the winners of these matches were going to then face off next week on SmackDown for the final. Why was that pulled out of nowhere? Forget the fact that this happened on SmackDown this past week and we have a new champion, but what we were told, because if you saw right before Daniel Bryan made the match, Bobby Roode was challenging Jinder Mahal to have the match tonight on SmackDown in Laredo, Texas. Yeah. And Jinder Mahal said, I'm going to give you a week to get ready for that U.S. match. And I'm sitting there thinking, you mean a week and a half because it's going to happen at the Rumble. And then Daniel Bryan came out and said, this match won't happen next week on SmackDown like expected. It's going to happen.
Like expected.
Like what? No, it was supposed to happen at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I thought it was at the pay-per-view. That's what I was thinking.
So, there, and only thing I can think about is maybe Dolph Ziggler's coming back quicker, or the fact that they just realized what we talked about last week on the show is there's not a lot of room on the Royal Rumble. But my question is now that they got to have maybe something else they're going to plan for next week on SmackDown. That's why they pushed this up. If it was on SmackDown, that would have been perfect because I was kind of wondering myself, okay, so you're going to have the semifinals and then SmackDown, you're not going to have any matches and then the championship at the Royal Rumble. So I was going to wonder how they were going to
out of placement.
But then they decided they were going to do it on SmackDown. So I thought perfect because SmackDown next week's got nothing going on. And then they change it even more so. Give us the U.S. champion, Bobby Roode, like a lot of expected. I knew it was going to be Bobby Roode, Jinder Mahal. Where it was going to go, I wasn't sure. But
I was surprised. I honestly, like I said last week, I thought it was going to be Mojo. I just had a feeling he was on a roll. Obviously, it didn't work out. That's fine. I'm good. I'm glad that Bobby Roode did win the championship. I'd rather have him as champion than Jinder Mahal. I think Bobby Roode's been, they've been utilizing him the way they should since he's been up, and I think this is finally the chance for the creative to do it the right way. He's too talented to just be sitting there on the mid card, not competing for championships.
Do you think this sets up for Bobby Roode, Dolph Ziggler, WrestleMania 10 a la the two championship belts? What we saw at WrestleMania 10, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, both claiming to be the IC champion, the two belts hanging in a ladder match between those great ring generals. Bobby Roode, Dolph Ziggler, a ladder match. Both IC belts, or both U.S. belts in this case, hanging up from the rafters. Who's the real U.S. champion? We're going to find out at WrestleMania. We're going to find out sooner than that. What do you think?
Yeah, I like where you're going with that. I would say WrestleMania. I would, without a shadow of a doubt, I think it's WrestleMania. Dolph's not fired. He didn't quit. Nothing of that. None of that stuff happened.
So why do you think they pushed this up?
I just think I think they're just trying to, I haven't looked at the ratings, but maybe they wanted to give a little spike in ratings, but you would have advertised it like, oh yeah, you would have had a week that.
Yeah, so I would have been watching. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't have been watching either way, but now maybe I'm more curious because the U.S. title match was supposed to be scheduled for next week on SmackDown. Now that it's not, maybe I'm more curious on what they're bringing to the table. And what was probably most notable out of this week's SmackDown is that the first two semifinals took up the first hour of the show. Then they decided that the championship match was going to happen on SmackDown, so they had a 20-minute break in which they had a 6-woman tag. Then the championship match, a.k.a. while still in the back, and they had some interviews. No Kevin Owens, no AJ Styles, no Sami Zayn.
Very
all the main event players thought this was the U.S. Championship event.
Yeah, it was
with a women's match in between. It was like the King of the Ring pay-per-view in the day where you'd have like all King of the Ring matches with like a throwaway match so that each can rest so you don't go right from one round to the next.
Aside from Bobby Roode winning the championship, it was just a blah Raw or a blah SmackDown. Besides that, I wasn't that entertained with the show overall. I mean, the match, the Xavier Woods and Jinder Mahal match was okay. I didn't watch the whole Riot Squad match versus Becky Lynch.
That was just literally a fill-in. That was just when we found out the championship match was going to happen. They needed to. It was a quote-unquote commercial break. Get your popcorn, get your soda, come on back to championship matches in 20 minutes.
They did. It was. I flipped through it. I watched a little bit of that match. Here's the thing. The problem. It's only a 1 week problem coming up. Is with Raw 25. How the hell is SmackDown compete? They're not going to. Raw 25. The ratings are going to be real high. I know a lot of.
I don't think they want them to compete. If the ratings for SmackDown were anywhere near the ratings for Raw 25, Vince McMahon would be just absurdly upset. Because, look at the money he's putting into Raw 25.
True.
We would have been happy with the stars that were originally advertised. And look at the people. He just keeps adding on people. Jerry Lawler, Kelly. People that aren't even, we don't even really need them there.
It's going to be
throwing them out there.
I'm not to push this week aside, but I'm really looking forward to next week's WWE programming.
Definitely Raw 25, SmackDown, where we don't really know what to expect.
So it could be fun, and they could have some surprises there too. You never know.
And we had a week off of seeing Kevin Owens and AJ Styles on TV, so it was a nice break because now they're going to be back next week without that immediate. They weren't on this past week on SmackDown, so we get a little break. Maybe they got something fresh for us right before the Royal Rumble. Maybe Bobby Roode and Jinder Mahal, the reason they wanted them to fight a week before the Rumble is so that they'll now have a chance to announce their place in the Royal Rumble this upcoming week.
It's going to be, I'll say this.
Maybe a rematch for the U.S. title.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, probably not, though, because it was a vacant title, so no one really deserves a quote-unquote rematch. But either way, I'm excited. The whole week of programming
is going to be great.
It's going to be good in WWE.
Yeah, it starts off with the Raw 25. Great way to start. And then the end of the week on Sunday at the Royal Rumble. If you're a WWE fan, this is personally, this is my favorite time of the year.
Now, to those who watched SmackDown this week and were wondering where AJ Styles was, and they were just upset and worried for the Phenomenal One, don't be, because AJ Styles was in Laredo, Texas. And after SmackDown aired, and then he flipped over to Facebook Live and watched a Mixed Match Challenge, and then he flipped over back to the WWE Network to watch a then delayed 205 Live. I think probably at 11:30 Eastern Time, maybe 10:30 local time in Texas. After all of that, AJ Styles did make an appearance, and TV cameras were present as he defeated Rusev for the final elimination in the KFC Colonial Rumble. We'll probably get to see some clips of that at the Royal Rumble. I believe KFC's sponsoring the Royal Rumble, so we'll get to see AJ Styles was victorious in the inaugural KFC Colonial Rumble. In fact, I'm assuming they're probably going to edit this, but the actual cameras that showed the clip showed AJ Styles pretty much pull off a Stone Cold Stunner on Rusev, and Rusev pretty much eliminate himself. He did a stunner, and then Rusev walked over to the rope and threw himself out. I'm assuming for the quote-unquote commercial piece they're going to do for this, where probably somebody in it's going to be dressed up as the Colonel like we've seen in the past with Shawn Michaels and Dolph Ziggler, that when he does that stunner, they're going to cut out the spot where he walks over to the ropes and eliminates himself. It's going to look a little more clean than that. But either way, AJ Styles was there, and I know he was going to be there. But, and Kevin Owens and all these people, they still appeared off camera, but it was I liked it. It was a change of pace. It wasn't too many of these guys crammed down. This is why 2-hour Raw SmackDown works, because 2-hour SmackDown, not 2-hour Raw SmackDown. 2-hour SmackDown works because we get a little bit of a change here. Everyone's not crammed down our throats.
I don't know if you saw their article that just came out. WWE is in talks of moving Raw to the Fox network.
I did see that.
Did you see what they also put in there?
No. What else do we got for us?
2 hours. 2-hour show.
And
I heard that.
And
I read it.
What's nice, because the USA Network wouldn't be probably in favor of moving it because they've already invested so much. But if you move it to a new network who's currently got 0 hours of wrestling, then they'll take any. If you give someone $1 million and then say, give me $200,000 back, they're going to say no. If you give someone $800,000 to begin with, then that's more than they had.
Exactly.
So that's why it would be easier to move it to 2-hour Raw if it was a new network, which currently has 0 hours of Raw, because they're getting 2 hours. They're not losing 1 hour.
Exactly.
So,
it's a good
I would
move.
assume it'd be on Fox Sports 1. Fox has been trying to really promote that channel recently. So it'd be on FS1.
Yeah, I would say Fox Sports 1 is probably, if it actually does happen, I would say that would be the network it would go to, what station it is. I don't think it's going to go to like the local Foxes, so to speak. It's not going to be on like.
I mean, that would be awesome if it was on national television.
I'd love
we
that.
could replace Michael Cole with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, maybe.
Oh, don't do that. No, we don't want to do
Speaking
that.
of Monday Night Raw, probably the biggest 3 stories that come out on Monday Night Raw were not really matches per se. 2 of them were completely off television. We'll start with the top one. Roman Reigns once again has been tied to steroid allegations. Richard Rodriguez, not to be confused with Alberto Del Rio's former manager, Ricardo Rodriguez, a former Iron Addicts gym owner in Miami, has been investigated by the DEA, and his gym was raided in February of 2017. And in the investigation, Roman Reigns was implicated. Now, since the implication, Roman Reigns has said this statement: I have never heard of Richard Rodriguez of wellness, fitness, nutrition. I learned from my mistake I made nearly 2 years ago and paid the penalty for it. Since then, I've passed 11 tests as part of WWE's independent drug program. And while WWE is solely hoping that what Roman Reigns is saying is true, because they've got a lot invested. WrestleMania's around the corner. The IC title's on the line this week. The Royal Rumble's next week. He's scheduled to headline your main event at WrestleMania. I mean, what do you do if you're Vince McMahon right now? What are you thinking in your head?
Hey, hopefully Roman's telling the truth, because if something does really come out and it's hard evidence against him, this WrestleMania is going to be interesting if it happens, especially around the corner here. I mean, if it rolls past WrestleMania, then Vince has got time to prepare for the following WrestleMania. But if it happens maybe like 2 weeks before it, or kind of like odd timing, like a week and a half before, or less than 2 weeks before the Royal Rumble, then there's a little bit of issue where they're going to have to scramble quick. So Vince is praying right now that Roman did not, do anything illegal or anything that could, make his brand look bad. So we just have to see what's going to happen. I mean, for now, it's more of a sit and wait. And, I think Vince in the background is probably drawing up some backup plans just in case. Because Vince is always ahead of the game on these things, so I would think
he's already got Jason Jordan ready to step in to take on Brock Lesnar in the main event of WrestleMania.
We don't want to do that. Now, speaking of the main event of WrestleMania, where I could see Braun Strowman possibly down the line.
Well, that's the thing: Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar. All 3 of those guys are kind of circled in. Maybe Roman Reigns is helping Vince McMahon kind of make up that decision. He's flipping a coin right now between those 2 guys. Maybe he's helping him make that decision in the sense of we should be pushing towards Roman Reigns. If we kind of taken away, I wanted to step away from Raw in the sense of I want to talk about something that wasn't in the ring, but let's talk about something that was on the program this week, and we're talking about Braun Strowman.
That was awesome. I was just about to get to that. That was absolutely fantastic.
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense of I was new, it was fresh, I love to see it. No, in the sense of stop overproducing. I tell this on Twitter all week. Stop overproducing it. I didn't need the camera on the truck. I didn't need the camera. I didn't need the 7 cameras backstage catching that.
Yeah, that part I get.
Yeah, I understand you need to have cameras in the setup of, obviously, I don't think Braun Strowman really is picking up that truck. I get that. But you don't need the camera on the truck itself. That was just too much. That's too much.
I mean, yes, I get the overproduction standpoint, but overall, it was a great.
But what was the point of the camera on the truck?
There wasn't really. To me, I don't think there was a point to it. I was looking at it too. I'm like, back in the day, there was just
you
one
added a camera
angle
on the truck. It's literally as if you said, you came back from commercial and said, ladies and gentlemen, just in case you were wondering, wrestling is scripted. Like, we already knew that. Why did you have to go out of your way and say it? And then come back from another commercial and say, just again, wrestling. We heard you the first time, and that's what the camera on the truck is. Like, we know it's scripted.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I will say, though, overall, it was great. I thought Braun
It was
Strowman,
interesting. It was new.
It was nice. I thought it was a nice change of pace. I really enjoy Braun Strowman the way he is. He's kind of like I wouldn't put him. I don't want to put him in that Stone Cold category, but he's kind of like against the authority, so to speak. He doesn't care.
I think what this did, because obviously Stephanie McMahon quote unquote rehired him, and Vince McMahon lost control or Kurt Angle lost control of the show. I think that again kind of keeps growing the tree of Kurt Angle losing control of Raw, Triple H having to come step in, maybe some dissension between Kurt Angle and Stephanie McMahon. Triple H is obviously going to be on Stephanie McMahon's side.
Triple H,
we don't want to do too much because WrestleMania is still a few months away.
Triple H, Kurt Angle, WrestleMania. I think that's where we're going.
So kind of talking on Raw, but stepping away from the actual results and the program itself. It was announced this past week on Raw that Paige will be out of the Royal Rumble. WWE hasn't made any official announcements, but Dave Meltzer, a well-known wrestling journalist, as well as all those in the business, have pretty much confirmed that Paige's in-ring career is over. She suffered an injury at a house show late December 2017. She hasn't competed since. She came to the ring this week with her group, Absolution this past week on Raw, and WWE they acknowledge she won't be in the Rumble because of injury. They didn't acknowledge she's done for good, but most are saying that she is.
I'm thinking. I obviously her in-ring career, it sounds like it's over, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to see her on programming. I think she's gonna be like a manager figure for Absolution. I really think that's where it's going. Like it's so new that this little group that they have. It's I think as long as Paige is okay with it. I mean, who knows? Paige can do what Paige wants, and she might just say, I don't want. If I can't wrestle, I don't want to be here. I mean, that could obviously happen. But if she plays it the right way, and WWE plays it the right way, this could be, a non-issue where she could still be a face on television and be a mouthpiece because she can talk very well. She's a very...
When's the last time you saw a good manager? I mean, Paul Heyman, but back in the day, everyone had managers.
Yeah, no,
there wasn't a tag team that walked out there without a manager.
There's only one good manager in the business right now, Paul Heyman. That's it.
Yeah, and he manages one guy who's not on every week.
He's on once in a blue moon. So it's
this could be a good opportunity.
But you don't want to overload the manager thing. We don't need managers for everybody. So and
this is another reason why the Royal Rumble women's side should have been 20 women.
You know what? I have to say it like this. We're going to see the Bella twins are going to be at the Royal Rumble. They're going to be in the match.
Both of them now have to be.
Yeah, they're going to have to be in the match. You're going to see Kelly in the match. Why have her on Raw 25 if you're not going to put her on the Royal Rumble? I mean, yes, it's the big 25 special. Mm-hmm. But
I feel that Raw 25 might be ruining some of the women's Rumble surprise because they're bringing in Kelly, and these are people that you were telling me earlier, hey, we could see her at the Rumble. Well, what do you mean we could see her at the Rumble? They're advertising her on Raw. Why would it's going to be no surprise when she shows up at the Rumble? You
know who I want to see at the Rumble really bad is I want to see Trish Stratus. I think she could still go. She's still in great shape from what I've seen and what I've heard.
So keeping on Raw, we move now to the first inductee named into the WWE Hall of Fame in New Orleans WrestleMania weekend. It seems like the class is going to be headlined not by The Undertaker, because I feel that would have been the first announcement. When they make this announcement, this is your headliner. And yes. Undertaker's going to be a headliner when he goes in.
Yeah, no doubt.
So word is it's not going to be Undertaker. It's going to be Goldberg. So WrestleMania is not coming to Atlanta. I thought, maybe when they came to Atlanta sometime in the future, that'd have been good. But they don't want to wait. Goldberg, right off the heels of his WrestleMania match, because that's what they do. You retire, what was it, Edge the year after he retired, Eddie Guerrero right after he died. Similar to this, Goldberg, right after he's quote-unquote done in the ring, he is going to headline the class at WrestleMania. So that means The Undertaker won't be headlining this class after his quote-unquote last match, which brings me to another story that surfaced this week by many reputable news sources. Undertaker's not done, folks. In fact, he's not just not done, but he's got a match in him versus John Cena. So throw away everything you saw. Throw away the extra 1 hour after the event was over that I spent at the Citrus Bowl in Orlando last year watching The Undertaker take the slowest leave I've ever seen in my life, put his coat down, put his hat down. Forget all those thank you Taker shirts that were sold and those WWE plaques they sold for $200. They said thank you Taker on them. And forget all that stuff of his quote-unquote retirement, despite the fact that he has 2 losses and his winning streak is out the books. He's not done yet.
Can I cut you off? With the way the Undertaker, I should say this, the way WWE is handling the Undertaker, it's like one of those bands that says it's their farewell tour, and then they come out to a tour like 2 years later.
This would be better if it's 2 years later. He's coming right back out.
I don't like it.
It wasn't even like thank you Taker, take a year off, and maybe we'll see it down the road.
No,
this is like Ric Flair wrestling the night after his retirement match. At least he didn't wrestle at WrestleMania 25. If Ric Flair wrestled nowadays, I'd be fine with it. But he didn't wrestle at WrestleMania 25 after he retired at 24.
If you sell thank you Taker shirts, he needs to retire.
If you sell thank you Taker shirts, what that means is you can't have him come right back to the next year's wrestling, because there's people on the active roster like Dean Ambrose and Big Cass who might not even come back to wrestle at next year's WrestleMania, let alone somebody who you pretty much sold his retirement.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan, when he quote unquote retired, he didn't like just retire for a month. He wasn't like retired after the season ended and then opening day of next year he was like
he was gone.
Yeah, he came back 1 or 2 times. I understand that.
Yeah.
But there were gaps between them, and there was a buildup between them. I mean, this is kind of ridiculous.
When Jordan went from basketball, then he tried that failed baseball career,
and then he retired again from basketball, and then came back when he was like quote unquote owner or GM of the Wizards.
Yeah, playing for the Wizards. Yeah.
So I kind of understand that, but I mean, he's supposed to be retired.
Now I have to get to this. Moving on. Going back to Raw. The curb stomp is back, baby.
That was it, man.
I love it.
And I was watching Raw live. I didn't really notice that my head was turned because Tom Phillips and Corey Graves, give it to them, they didn't really announce it. So the question is, how planned was it? Because, it wasn't made a big deal of. It was made a big deal of on social media, but it wasn't made a big deal of by WWE. Like, kind of surprising. And Tom Phillips, didn't want to acknowledge it. He kind of just he slams him to the mat.
It's like, come on, just embrace it, Well, I can understand if it wasn't quote unquote scripted on their part. Finn Balor and Seth Rollins, they're great ring competitors. So, there is an off chance that those guys could have talked to each other and said, let's put on a good match and let's do this. Obviously it was Seth Rollins versus some more WWE guy. I could see it not happening. Well, I could see it going down as perfectly scripted. But these guys, they look good.
They've got a history. So maybe, they were kind of feeding off each other. And it kind of was a spur of the moment thing. Tom Phillips, he definitely stayed kayfabe about that, and he didn't let on that they knew the curb stop was coming because he definitely didn't mention it.
It was. I have to tell you though, that was a great way to end the show. It was. I enjoyed it. It was a good match. I enjoyed that, and Seth Rollins obviously with that curb stomp picked up the win. So it was a good capper of the night for Raw.
So that's going to do it for our first part of the program. When we return, we've got much more for you. We've got the tweet of the week. We've got the Twitter question of the week. And while we haven't had Boy Green on the show in a while, he's still with us. In fact, he got an exclusive interview with a surprise Royal Rumble contestant from the year 2000. He wasn't in the Rumble, but he made his WWE debut at Madison Square Garden. We're talking about an ECW legend, a man who is it's hard to fathom that he currently has a mainstream sports talk radio show going right now.
Yeah.
It's hard to fathom that he's a company guy. He's a suit and tie guy. At one time, this was the baddest man in the business.
Yes,
ECW's face, Taz, as he sat down with our own Boy Green Paul Esden. You'll hear a snippet of that interview, as well as the rest of the program, including the weirdest 3 locations to ever host Monday Night Raw. We're leading up to RAW25 this past Monday and staying local to the show. We film it and record it right here in Syracuse, New York. Where are some weird places in the Empire State that have been home to Monday Night Raw in its 25 years? We'll get to that when we return, as this is the Heel to the Face podcast on Sports War Radio, Rat Pack Radio, iTunes, and on YouTube.
The New York Jets are rising and are ready to compete in the AFC. Boy Green and Ty Butler will give you everything you need to know about the Jets every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. From reviewing the previous game and looking ahead to the next matchup, to all of the news and 4 downs, the Jet Zone has everything. Follow @BoyGreen25 and @TyDButler on Twitter. Proud member of Sports War Radio. Let the battle begin.
This program is simulcast on WRPR Rat Pack Radio. Go to ratpacksports.com for more information.
Do you want to stay up to date on the latest sports news? Come check out After the Whistle from 4 to 5 p.m. every Friday night. We talk about the NHL, we talk about the NFL, we talk about the MLB. You name it, we got it. Tune in on Sports War Radio.
Now is the time to get your voice heard. Sports War Radio is now accepting applications for driven and knowledgeable sports fans who want to start their very own podcast about their favorite team. Sports War Radio has an international audience and is growing fast. Don't miss the chance to become the go-to news source for your favorite team. Email sportswarradio@gmail.com and tell us why you would be a great addition to our team. Sports War Radio. Let the battle begin.
Now is the time to get your voice heard. Sports War Radio is now accepting applications for driven and knowledgeable sports fans who want to start their very own podcast about their favorite team. Sports War Radio has an international audience and is growing fast. Don't miss the chance to become the go-to news source for your favorite team. Email sportswarradio@gmail.com and tell us why you would be a great addition to our team. Sports War Radio. Let the battle begin.
Let's get back to the action. This is the Heel to the Face podcast on Sports War Radio.
Heel to the Face podcast is back on the air, and it is time once again to get into our social media portals. It is time for our Twitter question of the week. So let's skip to our Twitter question of the week. And this was one that I did a little homework on. I came up with it this past week. And, I was interested. I did my homework. It felt like the longest of all time, but it's been the longest in 10 years that Raw has had a gap between pay-per-views. And the current gap we see on Monday Night Raw is 10 weeks for Raw Superstars between the Survivor Series and the Royal Rumble. The last gaps that we saw that were similar to this were when Raw Superstars were a part of the Royal Rumble and then were not a part of the pay-per-views leading up to WrestleMania. So the gap between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania and the February pay-per-views were dominated by SmackDown. That happened 2 years, 2006, 2007. Before 2006, they were dual-branded, and after 2007, they were dual-branded once again. So those gaps were about 13 weeks. So this is the longest gap in 10 years between pay-per-views for any brand, let alone Raw, but it's 10 weeks between pay-per-views for Raw. So my question was simply, we haven't had a pay-per-view to build up. We've just literally had Raws. It's like it's 1994 all over again, and they got 6 months of just wrestling on good old cable television. How have you judged the writing and the storytelling in this span, keeping us interested without a pay-per-view on the near horizon? And we've got every answer on the board. 45% said Raw is Raw, the same. 33% has actually been worse, and 22% say the storytelling and the writing has been better. Brandon, let me get your answer.
I put under worse. I just think overall, there has been, obviously a few highlights. Like we talked about with the Braun Strowman thing that just happened this week. Overall, I feel like I've been fast forwarding through the shows more. I've been kind of bored. I'm not going to lie. I feel like some of it's just kind of drawn out. I feel like it's honestly a lot of times I feel like it's boring. To me, I just feel like a lot of times I feel like they're lacking creativity or just being lazy. There's been a few highlights, obviously, like we said with the Braun Strowman. There's been a couple other things, but I think overall, I think having this much time between pay-per-views, I think is really put a detriment to the programming.
And you know what? When you talk about the gap they had between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, they had a lot of matches that they were building up. They're not really building up any matches because the Royal Rumble is where 99% of these competitors are going. They're only building up one match, or essentially two matches now, for the Royal Rumble, which is the tag team match and the championship match, which Brock Lesnar kind of comes and goes. So WrestleMania, you might be building up 6 or 7 different Raw matches, or at least 5 Raw matches in that span. You're only building up, 1 or 2 matches in this time. So you don't really have to, they don't want to plant a lot of seeds for matches because all these guys are just going to go in the Royal Rumble. So like at the Christmas night Monday Night Raw, and we thought Christmas night Monday Night Raw was silly. And now looking back on it and realizing that they had so much time between pay-per-views, it looks even sillier because you're like, wait a minute, we already have way too many Raws. So that's 30 hours of Monday Night Raw, not including the extra 15 minutes they throw on there. So if you add all those up, we're looking at 32 hours of Raw between one pay-per-view and another pay-per-view. So that Raw on Christmas Day really looks like it didn't need to happen. We could have just, like SmackDown essentially did with their main superstars this week and AJ Styles and Kevin Owens and took them off TV. We could have done the same for Raw around Christmas time because we would have still had 9 episodes of Raw even without the Christmas episode. In fact, there's been years past where they don't have a Christmas episode, where they might play Tribute to the Troops instead on Christmas night. And then when New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, then 1 week later falls in Raw, they play like a best of. So in years past, a lot of times they've had 2 best of shows and non-Raw. So it pretty much, you at least had a 2-week gap between there. No, this week we went full on live Raw, and when it was needed the least. It's one thing if there's a pay-per-view like 4 weeks away, you need all those Raws. You can't get rid of a Raw. You need all those Raws to build up a pay-per-view that's only 4 Raws away. But there's 10 Raws. You could have definitely made one of those a best of the year show.
Break it up a little bit.
Or a rerun of the Tribute to the Troops. Like, that's where this was really not needed. I want to say it felt the same. So it didn't feel better. I feel a lot of those Raws could have been what SmackDown's doing, and they could have been building up a tournament.
So you answered same.
Yeah.
Okay.
I felt the same. I feel like they could have been building up a tournament. They could have maybe put the world title on the line, maybe on Christmas night. Because if they would have put the world title on the line on Christmas night, that would have still been 6 weeks ago. So you wouldn't have felt like that would have ruined the Royal Rumble because that would have been a pay-per-view. If the world title's on the line at the pay-per-view before WrestleMania, you don't feel like that ruins the WrestleMania main event because you still have a whole month after that.
Here's the thing. The real root of this problem is the brand split, so to speak. No matter what pay-per-view falls at that month or every 3 weeks, whatever it turns out to be, there's no gap where the writing can still be fresh that way, I think.
Well, even with the brand, they could have had, the December pay-per-view could have been dual branded. It still would have been a long time from December 17th. Because we're still looking at about 7 to 8 weeks for the SmackDown guys between pay-per-views. Because remember, Dolph Ziggler won that U.S. title at the last pay-per-view, got rid of the title. Then the following week, they announced the tournament. And then the following week, they started the tournament. And now we're sitting here with the tournament complete. So that's the gap just for SmackDown. We went from Dolph Ziggler winning the belt. Between pay-per-views for Raw, we went from announcing a match for the U.S. title, having the match for the U.S. title, having a new U.S. champion, him getting rid of the belt or leaving WWE, them announcing a tournament, them having the entire tournament, and all that time we've had no pay-per-views for Raw.
Yeah, that's why I've always.
And Raw again is an hour and 15 minutes longer.
Yeah, that's the other problem. I mean, I'm on board with the 2-hour thing. I think, if things move the way that network might move, it could be back to 2 hours again. That's what I'm thinking.
I would like to see Raw on Fox Sports 1. I just feel it's an edgier. It's sports. I like it on a sports network, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's similar to what it is a lot of times in Canada. Now, Canada, it's on a sports network there, but it's not on like the ESPN. It's on the more cutting edge, like what Fox Sports is. The kind of, they have blooper shows and top 10, celebrity appearances at a game, or, more of the cutting, what we see on Fox Sports 1.
Absolutely.
Like the Colin Cowherds and the with Chris Carter, and the other with Skip Bayless, like the more kind of controversial
controversial figures. Yeah.
What Fox is known for. Fox is not known to be NBC. Fox is the place that has cops and Married with Children and The Simpsons and, World's Scariest Police Chases, when NBC has the more pristine programming, I guess, is the best way. So I think Fox Sports 1 would be a good place for it. I would like it there.
They already got UFC on it, so why not?
Yeah.
I mean, you could definitely market it that way too, because UFC, they like this past week on a Sunday night, because we had Martin Luther King Day on Monday. A lot of people were off. They had a fight night on Sunday night on Fox Sports. Good card, by the way. But it's cool to see how big UFC has gotten. I mean, obviously WWE is pretty damn big itself, but I would like to see its marketability even expand more. And I would say, not to take off the USA people, but a better network for what the type of programming it is.
So USA is owned by NBC Universal. So for the nerds at home, this might harken back to 1992. Saturday night's main event was traditionally on the NBC network, which is the current owner of the USA network. And the last 2 episodes ever of Saturday Night Main Event were actually pushed over because they didn't know they were the last 2 episodes. But Saturday Night Main Event, for its finish of the program, before obviously returning in the 2000s, was on the Fox network on Saturday nights. I think it was aired after Cops or America's Most Wanted or one of those. So WWE could once again be transitioning from NBC over to Fox for the first time since it did that for Saturday Night Main Event in 1992. Let's hope it has a longer life than when Saturday Night Main Event moved over to Fox, pulled out 2 episodes, and then we're done there. Well, then that was the birth of Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
But keep it on our social media. Let's get to our tweets of the week. Brandon, what do you have for your tweet of the week?
Usually I go to WWE Creative Humor-ish.
I saw your tweet of the week this week. Congratulate. That's what it's all about.
That was a good one.
You really did your homework this week.
I did. I saw this tweet, and it's from at Omega Section. I wonder if he's a Kenny Omega fan. I'm just taking a shot in the dark on that one. It's Jose. And what he tweeted out was, Chris Jericho is literally that bitch. He just had an amazing match 2 weeks ago on New Japan Wrestling, attacked NATO, and is on RAW25. Wow, legend. Is Chris Jericho one of the only people, only guys that can do something like this? I mean, this guy, Jericho's all over the place.
I feel if wanted, I feel that Undertaker and Brock Lesnar could. I mean, Brock Lesnar did it. Brock Lesnar said, "I'm going to go to UFC. I'm going to do," and they have that power.
Here's
what's nice
though
about Chris Jericho when he goes to these other things? He doesn't really badmouth WWE. He's just giving good press for everybody. That's what I feel.
He's having fun, man. He has a good time. The Japan folks love him.
Remember, he's got that cruise coming up where it's
Ring of Honor.
Mix of Ring of Honor guys, New Japan guys.
The thing with Jericho that we forget is that I think he's 45 or 46 years old. I mean, Undertaker's what, 51? I mean, they're not that far apart in age, but Chris Jericho could still go. I think Undertaker, I hate to say it, I mean, we've been saying it for years, he needs to go. He needs to retire. He doesn't. I think Undertaker, this whole Undertaker John Cena thing, I think you're just wasting John Cena, because John Cena could still go. I mean, he's 40, but he could still go. And
the problem is, with John Cena, I feel for them, maybe it's good in the sense of, a lot of people don't like either of their in-ring techniques. So I guess if you throw it away in one match, instead of having each of these people waste a match, John Cena waste a match with somebody who's actually good, Undertaker waste a match with somebody good, you just kind of take these 2 people who are cool. It's like if you take the celebrities and instead of having 2 celebrity matches versus good wrestlers, you put them against each other. So you're like, all right, good, 20 minutes, let's just get that out of the way so we don't have to waste Seth Rollins versus Floyd Mayweather and Trish Stratus versus Snooki. So my tweet of the week last week, I told you all about Marty Scurll. He's part of the Bullet Club. We introduced him to the program after his big rise to fame in New Japan Pro Wrestling. His rise to fame in my eyes. Obviously, wrestling fans don't get on me. I know he's been around. He's a verified Twitter account, folks. So Ring of Honor this past week did a quote-unquote Throwback Thursday, and they posted a match on their Twitter account between Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles. I mean, that's cool enough. AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan. I mean, if you have the rights to these guys in Ring of Honor, I mean, you're going to promote them. That's what you do. They still promote Samoa Joe. They still promote Seth Rollins. I mean, minor league baseball teams do that all the time. If Derek Jeter played in that city rehabbing once and they have the right and they're allowed to put him on a bobblehead or on a big poster, they're going to do it.
And why not?
Exactly.
Make some money.
Exactly. I mean, colleges do it. Everybody does it. If you played there, you were there, you made an appearance, you're going to milk that as long as you're legally allowed. Marty Scurll, though, his subtweet of it was better. When he said, "A better chicken wing, ? I hope you're, quote unquote, all in with that statement." And what he meant by the all in is that's a theory to their upcoming show that they're scheduled for. It's not on the books yet, but in about 10 months, that whole 10,000 seats Ring of Honor spectacular they're trying to show. So Marty Scurll might be hinting at, maybe that's going to help us get to 10,000. Daniel Bryan, are you going to be a part of that Ring of Honor 10,000 person show in a few months? Kind of.
It's possible. His contract's coming up soon. So
and he's kind of, and I don't. To be honest with you, in the tweet, I don't even know so much. I know he's saying Daniel Bryan gave the chicken wing, but he could be. I'm assuming he's hinting at Daniel Bryan more than he is AJ Styles. His contract's not up, but he's hinting at Daniel Bryan, Daniel Bryan. Are we going to see him on the? And that's a good name for a show, All In, because then it helps these like mysterious tweets that people have been sending out that have been, I'm all in November, or I hope Charlotte or Chicago is all in, So it's kind of fun seeing them use that in that way.
Mm-hmm. It's good promotion, good advertising.
So we're going to take a step back for a second. Paul Boy Green Esden, we haven't seen him on the show in a bit. He's still in our open. He's still a part of our program. He hasn't been a quote-unquote part of the studio show in a little bit. He's hoping to rejoin us real soon. Some great things have happened with him lately. But this week, and speaking of those great things, he got a chance to sit down with the hardcore suplex machine. Before Brock Lesnar made the suplexes as popular as they are, there was this man who put, quote-unquote, ECW on the map, Taz, the suplex machine. He's now a corporate guy. He has a morning sports talk radio show, which is great because he can send out a few of those, get wrestling a little out there in the mainstream, the best that he can. And our boy Paul Green Esden sat down with him, and here's just a clip from that interview.
Boy Green here with you, and we've got a special guest joining us on the phone lines, a radio personality, former color commentator, and former professional wrestler, Taz, joining us on the show. Taz, thank you so much for taking the time, my man.
My pleasure. What's going on?
Well, first off, Taz, the main reason that I've known you from my childhood, and many do for that matter, is because of that pro wrestling career, and you got to achieve a ton of highs, multiple championships. I just want to ask you to start things off, what was the proudest moment of your career?
That's a tough question. I've been fortunate to get a lot of opportunities, and it was a lot of work. I would say one of the things that jump out to me right away that I'll never forget was getting to have my debut for the WWE in my hometown at Madison Square Garden against Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle. So that for me was like an amazing opportunity. And also in Florida, winning my first World Heavyweight Championship before I went to WWE, and that was in ECW against the franchise Shane Douglas. So those two things jump out to me big time.
All right, that's just a little snippet of what you can expect. We're going to post the whole interview on our YouTube channel, Heel to the Face. You'll be able to get a link for it there, the whole interview with Paul Boy Green Esden, sat down with the suplex machine Taz. But before we close out this week's show, we're coming up on the 25th anniversary of Raw, and I thought, what better time to bring this out than now? We're just a few days away from the 25th anniversary of Raw. And Raw has been all over. WWE has let you know that Raw, they've been in Chicago. They've been at Madison Square Garden. But we record this program right here in New York State. So let's be, a little local and bring up the 3 craziest places and strangest places to ever host Monday Night Raw. The reason it's 3 is because I thought these were pretty crazy. Places like Utica, New York, which seems asinine or crazy to host Monday Night Raw. Now even Syracuse, with the arenas they go to. But not crazy in the aspect of any one of these time periods. But one time and one time only, we'll start with number 3. In the midst of the Attitude Era. And kind of funny because the Winter Olympics are coming up very soon. Monday Night Raw on June the 16th, 1997, with your main event of Farouk and Kama Mustafa beating Ahmed Johnson and The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Brian Pillman, Triple H. They made an appearance.
Lake Placid?
Lake Placid.
Yes. Good
at
guess.
the Olympic Arena in Lake Placid. In the height of the Attitude Era, Lake Placid's about an hour away from, maybe an hour and a half away from Albany, New York. I mean, nobody really lives in Lake Placid, so a very strange location to be hosting Monday Night Raw. They have the arena there because they've hosted the Olympics, and they host a lot of speed skating, figure skating, ice hockey.
There was kind of a big event that was in Lake Placid. Yeah, I think
the
it was
Miracle on
1980.
Ice? Yeah. Yes.
So not a bad place to do it.
But they got about 6,000 people to show up for Monday Night Raw on June the 16th, 1997, in the height of the Attitude Era. And the next two we move on to, we're not in the height of the Attitude Era. In fact, when both of these Monday Night Raws took place, it was back when Monday Night Raw would actually film 3 episodes at a time when they would make an appearance. Because Monday Night Raw was only 1 hour long, and they would film 3 episodes at a time. And it was actually a while before Monday Night Raw even left the New York State area. Obviously, the Monday Night Raw this coming Monday night is going to be from the Hammerstein Ballroom, and ode to when they were in only small arenas and never really left New York State. I think they went to a few small arenas in Pennsylvania. But from 1993 to mid-1995, they never really went anywhere spectacular. They never left New York, but still, even if you're not leaving New York, I could think of some more regular places than this. And we're going to start with number 2. Liberty High School in Liberty, New York, hosted Monday Night Raw from December the 12th all the way until January 2nd. They hosted 3 straight weeks of Monday Night Raw.
You got me on that one. I didn't get. I want to guess that one.
Liberty, New York. It's about an hour and a half, maybe an hour north of New York City. Again, there's a lot of small arenas. They were in Poughkeepsie. They were in White Plains. They were in Peekskill. They were in Utica, New York. But they decided Liberty High School, and that's the thing. Why Liberty High School? I mean, how many high schools do you think there are in New York State?
A lot.
And if you look up Liberty, New York, this isn't a city. This is a small town. This is just like if it went to any high school.
Yeah, it would be like the equivalent of what you see now with like the old 2CW stuff.
I would say Oswego, New York, Plattsburgh, New York, Johnson City, New York, Niagara Falls, New York. You name them. I would say those, to me, would be more recognizable venues that could host the Monday Night Raw.
I would have never guessed
that. If I was Vince McMahon and picking a place to host Monday Night Raw, there would be literally probably 50 places that I would pick. Even if I was going to only look for a place that fit 1,000 people, I would probably think of 50,000, 1,000 seat venues.
I didn't see that coming. When you threw Liberty in there, I was like, what?
Well,
I've never heard of that.
If you didn't see that coming, wait till you got to number 1. So WWE, we know their headquarters are pretty much, the New York City area. So the wrestlers, they got on the bus, they got in their cars, and they drove to upstate New York, and they passed Albany. They were yet to host Raw in Albany at this time. They passed Utica, where they just had Raw a few weeks earlier. They passed Syracuse, where they had yet to ever host Monday Night Raw, and had lots of places they could. The War Memorial would have been a good venue. And they started to drive north. Now, on their way north, they passed Watertown. Because Watertown, that is about a 30,000 population. That's a small city, and that might make sense. It'd make more sense than Liberty. But they kept going all the way to... Brandon, what you got it?
Is it Messina?
No,
Darn.
Messina might have made more sense because, again, that's quote-unquote considered a city. This place isn't considered a city at all. This place is a town. In fact, outside of the summer months, this place you would never go to. Granted, this was the summer months of August 9th and August the 3rd, 1993. But the Castle Recreation Center in Alexandria Bay, New York.
I was A-Bay.
Hosted Monday Night Raw. Google map this place, because if you Google map it, you would say this place hosted. This place, I would honestly say, would be fit to host an independent wrestling show, but nothing greater. I would say this is, when we talk about how Impact Wrestling, the places they go, Impact Wrestling, while they might go to small venues, they still go to small venues in bigger cities. They were at a small venue in Ottawa, Ontario, but they were in Ottawa, Ontario. They're thinking of going to a smaller venue for another pay-per-view coming soon in Toronto. But again, those are bigger cities. If they went to Syracuse, but went to not the War Memorial, went to a, ice hockey arena, that would make sense because they would have Syracuse on the name. But Alexandria Bay, I can't imagine back in the day, watching Monday Night Raw. I just can't imagine even advertising. Did people get tickets through Ticketmaster, or did they just go down to the Castle Recreational Center and get the tickets from the VFW volunteers that were working there? On the cards in Alexandria Bay. I'd love it if they came back to this place in Alexandria Bay where Mr. Perfect and Vince McMahon were your announcers. People in Alex Bay got to see the likes of Randy Savage, Mr. Perfect, Adam Bomb, the Steiner Brothers, Dwayne Gill, Shawn Michaels, Owen Hart, Razor Ramon. I mean, nowadays it's just crazy.
That's a great card right there. That's a great collection of superstars right there.
And it's crazy to think because, and I was talking to my girlfriend at the time, and I was saying, it's crazy that they were ever in Alex Bay. And she says, well, WDB was at, was a different time then. And while it definitely was a different time in the world of Monday Night Raw,
absolutely,
I had to remind her, this was 2 weeks right before they sold out the Palace at Auburn Hills for SummerSlam 1993 in Detroit, Michigan. Okay, this wasn't a different time. This was 6 years after 93,000 went to see WrestleMania at the Silverdome in Detroit, Michigan. This was coming off of WrestleMania at Las Vegas and getting ready to go to WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden.
Not to cut
in
you off.
between there.
Did they finally implode the Silverdome?
They did.
Okay.
It took them 2 times to do that, but they did finally implode.
I know the first time wasn't very successful. So
yes. So Alexandria Bay, a place that you would definitely...
I'm going to visit that because I got a camp up north, as you guys we've talked about. And I was, I have a summer residence. Well, I shouldn't say permanent residence, but I'm up there as much as I can in the summer. And I pass A Bay. I'm going to have to stop by.
It's not just a small... It's in a residential neighborhood. I'm wondering where these people even parked, because the parking lot at a local convenience store, if you look at this, is bigger. So, I mean...
I can't get over that right now.
I mean, they filled the place up, but I just can't imagine the idea.
They
if
filled
Shawn
it up,
Michaels came to sign autographs at this place, I would feel that would still even be out of place in today's WWE landscape. I mean...
Well, heck, I saw Mick Foley and Matt Hardy and Mickey James at Auburn High School a couple years ago.
But Auburn, New York, if you were to drive through Auburn, New York, and as crazy as this sounds, and people at home might not know this, but Auburn, New York, they have a single-A baseball team. On their sign, they are a city.
Yeah, yes.
That's the thing. Even as small of a city that they are, they claim to be a city. Alexandria Bay is a little resort village outside of... why would you not go to Watertown?
You know what? I wish we can get Vince on just to ask him that and see if he would remember that. He probably remembers.
Why not Watertown? Watertown is Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or Boston compared to where they went.
Hell, they should have just done
You went to a place in which, if Monday Night Raw was there every single week, that would mean WrestleMania is going to be in Syracuse at the War Memorial. In comparison, in comparison of if Raws are in smaller venues, that means then they must have been building up for a pay-per-view in Watertown, New York. I mean, it's crazy. It's just, I understand WWE was a different time then, but again, of all the places you could have gone, I'm not saying you were looking for a big arena. You were only looking for a place that fits 1,000 people, and there's probably lots of ice hockey arenas all over New England, all over New York State, Oswego, Auburn.
Especially up north, you got Malone, you got Messina.
Ogdensburg, you got them all.
Ogdensburg, yes.
Why they stopped in Alex Bay? Maybe Vince McMahon's got a camp there. Maybe he still does. Maybe you can see Vince McMahon this summer camping out on the Thousand Islands.
Maybe I'll find him on the way up to camp this summer.
All right, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the program. For Brandon the Icebreaker Clements, myself, Jared, just Jared Wicks. Don't forget to follow the program on Twitter at Heel to the Face, as this has been the Heel to the Face podcast on Sports War Radio, Rat Pack Radio, iTunes, and on YouTube.